Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel Kalanati. Today I'm going to talk about Consider Phlebas by Iain M. Banks. This is one of his science fiction culture novels. It was published in 1987, and I think that usually the culture novels are put in publication order, which means this would be the first one that many people read. It's actually my fourth culture novel. I've been reading them in kind of an idiosyncratic order. So I have read Player of Games, Use of Weapons, and Surface Detail before this one. And I have to say right up front, this is kind of in the middle. It's not my favorite. That would probably be Use of Weapons, but it's not my least favorite either. I really kind of hated Surface Detail. This is very much middle of the road for me. I enjoyed it. There's some things about it I really loved, but there are also some things about it that I think make it a less strong book in some ways. I am not going to try to explain what the culture is or really what this universe is like. That would be beyond me. I am not very knowledgeable about the culture in this series in general, since I've been reading the books very slowly over the past 5 years, but it's very clear, I think, that this is set very far in the future, very far away from Earth. Earth doesn't really figure into any of this, and the culture is one of many spacefaring civilizations. There are many human civilizations, the culture is one of those, and there are also many truly alien civilizations. The culture is very technologically advanced and does kind of have a policy of not super interfering. They're not expansionists, they don't actively conquer territories, but they will interfere in subtle ways. I think that Consider Phlebas, the events of this book are kind of set, like predate other books by a considerable amount of time, and I think that the culture presented in this is younger, not as wise, hasn't figured out as many of its policies yet, and that the war in this book is kind of a real test of what the culture is. I could be wrong about this, but that's the main sense I came away from, that this was a major turning point for the culture, and then a lot of the other stories are set after it. That explanation aside, what is Consider Phlebas actually about? This book mainly follows a man named Bora Horsa Gobuchul. Horsa is a humanoid man. He's from like a species of human called changers that can change their physiology. They can impersonate and take on the appearances of other people. Horsa is fighting on the side of the Adirans in their war against the culture. So he's not Adiran. He doesn't particularly like or agree with Adiran policies, but he hates the culture more. It is a very classic case of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and I think that he literally says that at some point in the book. The Adirans are not humanoid. They are a completely alien species. They are expansionist, they're religious fanatics, they are trying to conquer all other civilizations and species. It's basically part of a religious war, I guess. So why does Horsa hate the culture though? I think essentially it boils down to he's afraid of them and he's afraid of their technology. He claims that the culture is ruled by their technology, that the humans in the culture are dominated and controlled by their drones, by their technological minds, and that the technology is just kind of putting up with the humans and the humans are obsolete. And I think that Horsa interprets this as a lack of control, a loss of control for humans, for real people, and he's very afraid of that. So at the beginning of the book, Horsa is on a mission for the Adirans on another planet. He has been impersonating someone in the government. He's been found out and is jailed, and he's about to die. While he's been on this planet, he has met the undercover culture agent, a woman named Balveda, and while they're not friends, they've come to know each other quite well. I think that Balveda is the only human face that Horsa can put to the culture, and now that he's seen someone, he's interacted with a real person from the culture, he can't really truly think of her as an enemy that he should kill or be cruel to or anything, and that complicates things a lot in the story. So Horsa has been sentenced to death, and then right as he's about to die, an Adiran spaceship arrives. They rescue Horsa, they take Balveda prisoner, and then on the ship, they order Balveda to be executed, and Horsa believes that she is now dead, and then the Adirans send him on his next mission. They kind of eject him into space in a spacesuit on a trajectory towards a planet called Shar's World, where they want him to land, find, and capture an escaped culture mind that had survived the destruction of the ship that it was in. But while Horsa is in his spacesuit flying towards Shar's World, he is intercepted and captured by another ship, and the next 400 pages are all about the misadventures of Horsa as he is continually waylaid. He's always trying to get to Shar's World even when he is being dragged off in pretty much the opposite direction. And through this you learn a lot more about him, about his past, about his beliefs, and about this war between the Adirans and the culture and all the people and such that he encounters along the way. This is probably the one thing about this book that really kept me from being fully immersed in it, the one thing that I thought was a bit off about the book. It takes a really long time to get to its point. There were a couple of times when I actually forgot what Horsa was trying to do. I forgot that he was ultimately headed towards Shar's World. I wasn't quite sure why that was so important to him. And I think that it's just a little bit too long. Some of the events of the book take too long. The pacing is off. We're not reminded enough of what Horsa is really trying to do. I wanted it to be shorter, a little bit less bloated somewhere in the middle. But maybe it's also that I didn't quite grasp the theme, the point of the book, until quite late. Maybe I was just kind of blind to it. What do I think this book is actually about? I think that it's about an identity crisis in a way. It's about how a man starts to kind of lose his belief that he is doing the right thing, or that he's going about it in the right way. In the beginning of the book, Horsa is very willing to argue his stance about why he is fighting on the Adiran side, about why he hates the culture, and he seems very confident in his stance. But as the book progresses, this is called into question more and more, I think, and he's more short-tempered about it. He's less willing to really talk about why he's doing what he's doing. He has chosen one evil over another, and the black and white situation that he has continually presented to himself is much, much murkier in reality, and he is faced with that multiple times. By the end of the book, he doesn't know himself. He literally has changed his face and his body and his name. Who is he? There's an interesting sequence from another person's point of view. There are some interludes with a woman named Phlebas in the culture. She's like a human mind in a way in the culture who can kind of function at with the same ability that the technological sentient minds do. And she, at one point, is thinking about what the culture is, and that the culture in this war is also going through its own identity crisis, asking, why did we get involved in this? We have to decide one way or the other. This war is going to shape what the culture is. And she's thinking about, if the culture is this thing, what does that make you, Horsa? If your enemy is so terrible, if you think your enemy is so terrible, what does that make you when you go to such extreme, terrible lengths to do your job? Like, Horsa leaves a wake of cruelty and bodies behind him as he's trying to fulfill his mission for the Adirans. So by the end, it's like, he's become the thing that he hates. And that, I think, may be the point of this story, but for most of it, the whole bit in the middle, I think that got lost. However, there are many things that I really enjoyed about this book. The one, first and foremost, that I have to point out is that like all the culture novels I've read, whether I liked the meat and the content of them or not, it's super well written. This is dang good science fiction, and for a book published in 1987, it hasn't dated very much, in my opinion, with the type of science fiction that it is, that it's so far in the future, it's so far removed from our world now. It's not dated in its science or its technology or in the world building. It still felt very much like modern science fiction to me, and it's just so well written. Banks was a great writer and a great storyteller, and just on the prose level, the sentence level, this was an excellent book. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this is that it's not from the point of view really of the culture. It lets you see the culture from an outside perspective of somebody who doesn't like them, who doesn't necessarily believe that the culture is all that great. And that's really different from the previous books I've read, which are really all about the culture kind of from the inside, people working for them, citizens of the culture or allies of the culture. And this one, very different. And I think the truth is somewhere perhaps in the middle. I don't think that Horsa really knows what the culture is like, but it's interesting to have a differing opinion on whether the culture is really as good as it presents itself. I really liked that. I also really enjoy the depth of the politics, of the philosophies being argued. The dynamics in the story are very complex. There's a lot that you can dig into here. There's a lot going on under the surface. And even if I think that it's maybe a little bit bloated, that maybe some of these things would have appeared sharper if it had less of a word count, I do think that all the parts of this story do actually hang together quite well. So those are my main thoughts and major impressions of Consider Phlebas by Iain M. Banks. Definitely let me know if you have read this book or other culture novels. What do you think of them? Leave me a comment down below. Thank you very much for watching this off the top of my head video, and I will talk to you again soon. And until then, bye.